Going on, Jerome's fired up, firing up some Q&A on this beautiful Wednesday. First up, follow your light. 420. If we don't sign a Hunter or Cousins, do we sign JJ and leverage draft picks now for a quarterback or build? Like the 49ers have solid D and effective O-line. I think losing Hunter and Cousins, I think that the impetus will be on the Vikings to find the quarterback of the future. It would be a extremely tough sell to the fan base and to Justin Jefferson to be like, hey, we lost Kirk Cousins. We lost, who, by the way, is a Justin Jefferson favorite. We lost Danielle Hunter, who's still one of the best edge rushers in the game. And now we're going to take all of that cap savings and we're going to throw it at Baker Mayfield. I mean, yeah, Baker had a great season last year, but are you really pumped to give Baker $45 million a year and say that he's the guy moving forward? No. I don't think you are. So I think that the Vikings would take a big swing at getting their quarterback of the future. I think that they would potentially look to move future draft picks and land themselves a Drake May, a Jaden Daniels, or maneuver so they get J.J. McCarthy, and it would be a new day, new dawn. Because I just don't see a viable way to sell to the fan base, hey, we're starting over with Baker. Or something similar. I just don't see that. There has to always be hope. Like either you have a good team or you have hope. That's the way you have to sell it. And I just don't see it working out the other way. Next up, Matt, if Kirk comes back, what's the point of hiring Kevin O'Connell? I was under the impression that he was supposed to develop the guy after Kirk. If they bring back Kirk for 2 more years and they're in the middle of the road like they have been, I have some major questions about the people at the top. Well, Kevin O'Connell was seen as this quarterback whisperer. He was seen as tall McVay, etc. But if you remember, like, the Rams, when they won the Super Bowl, is with a solid veteran like Matthew Stafford. Now, I think that was actually the selling point of Kevin O'Connell to ownership. And ownership obviously loves Kirk Cousins. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given the green light to sign him in 2018 or the 2-year extension. So I think that was one of the major selling points for O'Connell getting the head coaching job, because he could work with Kirk Cousins, and also his familiarity with him from his Washington days, I'm sure, certainly helped him. So I actually think that was the plan. And now, because remember, Kevin O'Connell and KOC, their first off season, they could have gone a different direction. They could have traded Kirk. They did not have to give him the 1-year, $35 million extension. So, I mean, also, you got to think that this could be their only shot to be a head coach and GM respectively. So they're betting their professional futures on Kirk Cousins. That's exactly what they did. And respect, Kevin O'Connell has worked well with Kirk Cousins. Before he got here, the Vikings were 14th in points and 12th in yards. 2022, 8th in points, 7th in yards, 13-4, win the division. Great success. 2023, all right, so slow start, yes, certainly was not all on Kirk. Drop passes, fumbles, all that stuff. But the Vikings ended up 22nd in points and 10th in yards, and mainly it was because Kirk popped his Achilles. You were on your 4th quarterback at the back end of the season. No Justin Jefferson for 7.5 games. No Hawkinson. And, I mean, the defense, which was much better, I mean, had a lot of issues towards the end, especially with injuries. So it was just sort of a lost season. But, Kevin O'Connell, like, they haven't really taken a swing at quarterback. They inherited Kellen Mond. That didn't work out. They traded for Nick Mullins, who's a decent veteran backup, and then they drafted Jaron Hall, but he's a 5th-round pick, so he's not seen as the future. So, I mean, yeah, Kevin O'Connell is supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, but again, to say that he was brought in not to work with Kirk, nah, I don't think that's it. I think he was brought in to work with Kirk and then eventually groom the quarterback of the future. Clinton Ressig, OG Jerome, what up? What top 3 problems would have KOC adofo-mensah fired after 2024? Well, I think the major one. Well, the major ones are tied together. So if he botches the quarterback situation, Kirk Cousins leaves for nothing, and maybe they go up and try and get their quarterback of the future, and if he has like a bust-ish Bryce Young type year, even with all the weapons around him, or they hitch their wagons to a veteran like Russell Wilson or Baker Mayfield or whatever, or Tannehill, and also it's part and parcel of with JJ. So Justin Jefferson wants to know who the quarterback of the future is going to be. He wants to know that there's going to be a plan there. And if Kwesi completely just F's this up and JJ doesn't sign his extension and he's set to hit open free agency next year, even though the Vikings could just franchise tag him or tag and trade him, I think that's borderline general manager malfeasance and incompetence. So that definitely would get his ass fired. Also, whiffing on another draft, no progress from the 2022-2023 class. Take another swing on free agents like Davenport. There's definitely a path for Kwesi to get fired after next season. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully the Vikings are getting off the mat and having a good season. Kanye West's biggest fan. If Daniil leaves, do you see potential in a Brian Burns signing? Yes. So I think the Vikings, if Daniil leaves, that does leave some money on the table, because even though they have their dead cap hits, that's already with Cousins and Daniil, void year dead cap hits, that's already baked into the cake in terms of the Vikings having 24, 29 million in cap space, depending on which site you're looking at. But Brian Burns, he's going to come in at top of the market. Like he's going to be expensive. He's going to be 25, 26, 27 million per year, and rightfully so. A 26 in April, 6'5", 250, 2019 first round pick in 2016. 46 career sacks, two-time Pro Bowler, career 11.8% pressure rate, played 90% of his snaps standing up last year on both sides. And, well, he had 12.5 sacks in 2022, and he only had 8 in 2023, but a lot of that was the Panthers' defense was just atrocious, which is odd because you had Brian Burns, you have Derek Brown, you had Jeremy Chin, even though Chin wasn't getting the time of day. It could be a spot, too, where Burns takes a little bit less or isn't able to get as much because he didn't have a double-digit sack season last year. But, there was just chaos around him, but Burns is an absolute talisman on the edge, and I love him. Like, he is a heat-seeking missile out there. He would be great with Flores, and he would be a great one-for-one replacement for Daniil. He's 4 years younger, as well as he's a guy that's going to give you some really quality football going forward. Lastly, Dylan Drake, morning Andy, what up? I hope you and your family are all doing well. Love the content. Thank you. My question is, if the next season turns out to be a mediocre year and we go 4-13, 8-9 record, and we fire Kevin O'Connell, who would be your pick out of the current free agent coaches so far? I would definitely love to have Mike Vrabel or elevate Flores. Also, any tips for what you do with a broken hat after close losses? I'm a Huskers fan as well, so I get a double dose of we should have won that game easily if we didn't turn the ball over 4 times. All right, so first questions first. Vrabel would make sense, and it's funny. Like, it would be a throwback to the Mike Zimmer years, where you have a hard-ass defensive-minded coach who wants to run the football, and if the Wolves want to go back, because usually what you do is you get the opposite of whatever coach that you just had, right? So you had Mike Tice, players coach, Brad Childress, nerdy a-hole, and then Leslie Frazier, quiet players coach, and then Zimmer, hard ass. And then you go to Kevin O'Connell, players coach, Ted Lasso, and then if you go back to Vrabel, who is Mike Zimmer adjacent, right? So I think Vrabel is unfairly scapegoated in Tennessee, but I think he's a very damn good football coach, and I sort of understand why he didn't get into the mix this year. Frankly, I think that it may benefit him from taking a year off, letting it breathe, and just getting back in that lab and getting it. And also, he had been talked about as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. I didn't think that was going to happen because I think that's frankly beneath him at this point. But I think Vrabel's really good. Flores, I wouldn't mind Flores. Like, I would love him. I think that he's a true leader of men. I think that he's learned a lot from his Miami situation. And the things that he did with that defense last year. Don't count the end of the season against him. Eventually, injuries do catch up. Murphy being out certainly hurt. But he basically made chicken salad out of chicken bleep all year. And he greatly improved that defense from the Donatello years with largely the same personnel. So I would, and also all the defensive players, speak very glowingly about him. Flores says that he's having a great time here. So I think that may be a succession plan if Kevin O'Connell and company do falter, where it would have to take a complete falling on your face spot for Kevin O'Connell, and it would not have to be injury related. It would have to be just ineptitude and mediocrity, which who knows, man. Also, I mean, Ben Johnson's probably going to take a head coaching job eventually. So is that a spot too where you just steal him from the Lions? I don't know, man. As far as being a Huskers fan, yeah. So, I mean, Nebraska was comical there for a while. Like whether it's Scott Frost, whether it's Matt Rule, just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and it's tough and it's rough, and it's a spot where Nebraska for so many years was the program. All right, so it's sort of like Notre Dame, where back in the day, they were one of the only teams constantly playing on national television. They would get the best recruits, and they would get all the great offensive linemen. They would get a great front seven with the black shirts, and they would get skill position running backs and quarterbacks like Tommy Frazier and Eric Crouch and stuff back in the day. And they were a powerhouse, man. But I feel like Nebraska fans got used to that level of winning and were spoiled by it. But the college football landscape has changed so much. Like Nebraska hasn't been that dominant in 30, 40 years. And I have high doubts that they're ever going to get back to that stage. I just because all the advantages that they had, national television when there was like 4 freaking channels, Tom Osborne and to a degree Frank Solich, those are gone. All those advantages are gone, and kids with options like they want to go play on South Beach, they want to go play warm weather, they want to go play in a spot where they could get to the NFL, and Lincoln, Nebraska, that really ain't it anymore. But can they be competitive? Sure. And I think that they are in good hands with Matt Rule. I mean, Matt Rule is not an NFL coach, right? But he got paid by David Tepper, so whatever. But things didn't work out with the Panthers. But Matt Rule is a damn good college coach. He's a great recruiter, whether it was at Temple or Waco. I think his temperament is great for the college game. I think that he understands the modern landscape with NIL stuff, and I think you're in a good spot. Like I think Matt Rule, give him a couple years. I think he'll have the Huskers as, maybe not an elite program, but a consistently very good program. And I think that's what Huskers fans should expect from now on. I mean, are you going to go back to consistently contending for national championships? No, I don't see that. But either way, you should be good to go under Matt Rule. Although I wish that Scott Frost would have worked out, man. Anyways, doesn't matter. But that's it. That's Q&A on this beautiful Wednesday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.